30 seconds and counting.
Hey, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be discussing Paolo Banchero. Today we're joined by special guest Paolo Alves, host of the Launchpad podcast for Clutch City Control Room. Paolo, could you introduce yourself to those who don't know you?
Yeah, what's up, everyone? I'm Paulo. I'm a big Rockets fan. I like to be able to dabble into a lot of the things from draft to trades to the actual gameplay on the games. And yeah, I just love the Rockets and I'm happy to be here.
So we're just going to start with the question about why do you think Paolo is given the label of like most likely to become a superstar?
So to me, if you want to be a superstar, you have to be either one of the best defenders in the league or you've got to be an offensive option, right? And to me, I think Paulo gets the label of the most likely to become a superstar because he has the best shot creation abilities and he has the best playmaking amongst the top three, right? Those are the fundamentals that you need. And then with that, if you can work on your on refining those attributes that he already has to make him become more efficient, to maybe at some point run an offense through him, he's the most likely because he has those offensive capabilities versus someone like I don't know, Jabari, who's probably a safer bet, but doesn't have the shot creation, doesn't really have the playmaking to some extent. And then Chet, who might have even more superstar potential than Paulo, but we didn't really get to see it at Gonzaga because he was really used as a star defensively, but as more of a role player offensively. So it's hard to really know where he's at offensively. And so I think that's mostly why Banchero is the most likely one to reach superstardom, at least coming out of the draft.
Yeah, that makes great sense. Him being a star in shot creation and all that, I definitely agree that he's the best shot creator out of the top three. To like bridge upon what you said about Chet not being used right in Gonzaga, you also claimed that Paolo was used improperly. Would you mind elaborating on that?
Yeah, I think Paulo ideally is not used as much of a post player as he was at Duke. I think he was kind of pigeonholed into a role that Duke had the hole in. So they had AJ Griffin to play the three, right? A top recruit. He was always going to play the three, right? And then they didn't really have a four. And they have Mark Williams at the five, who was pretty set in stone. And so Paul was a really versatile player. So he adapted to the role that Duke asked of him. And so he's viewed more as this post player by a lot of people because he was just that way in college. But I actually think that in the NBA, he will be more of a wing type, right? He will be more of a face-up player, a guy that can start at the perimeter if he can improve his three-point shot, especially when pulling up. That's going to help him even more. More of a guy that you want to start on the perimeter, get him downhill, and he's going to be really hard to stop because his frame's huge, right? And you can think of course, to a lesser extent, but you can think of I don't know the way LeBron or Giannis are terrifying because they're so big and if they get ahead of steam going to the rim, you're either going to have to foul them or let them score. And so I think that's the best way to use Paulo. I think Duke didn't really use him this way much. I think also that he's a really good ISO scorer, and at Duke, I would have liked to see some more of just 5 out, spread the floor, let him beat his man, and I think there would have been very few teams in college or very few players that would have been able to stop him one on one. So those are some of the things I would have liked to see more. Once, if you gave him that space, or if you gave him that much prominence on the offense, he would have been able to show a little bit more, and maybe his numbers would have looked better. But once again, I think that's one of the things that go for Paulo is, well, he came to Duke and he adapted to the role that the team asked him to play. He was very clearly the best player on that team, but he had no problem, deferring to your Jeremy Roaches, your Trevor Keels of the world, who are clearly not as good. But if that's what the team needs, Paulo complied.
Continuing on that point, just really quickly, I feel like also Paulo has been underrated as a passer. I feel like a lot of people aren't looking at how good his passing is. So, like, what do you think there's some misconceptions around Banchero other than maybe his passing being underrated or his defense? Of course, that's like a major criticism point. So, do you think there's other misconceptions about Paulo?
So I think the three main ones is, well, as you said, I think he's a better defender than he gets credit for. I think at Duke, he played in a system that in which they had very little ways to stopping dribble penetration. All of their perimeter defenders weren't great, except for Trevor Keels. And so Duke was constantly chasing closeouts because if you're getting the dribble penetration, the Mark Williams is helping and someone's open on the perimeter, and so you're always chasing closeouts. And that's a really hard way to play defense. You're going to expend a lot of energy just running around. And so I think his defense will probably look better at the NBA level. I also think that he was playing overweight or compared to his natural weight, and so I think he'll be a little bit lighter. And because of that, he'll look a little bit better. I don't think he's ever going to be a lockdown guy, but I do think that he'll look better than in the Duke. That being said, other misconceptions. I think the playmaking is kind of died down as people have watched more tape and people recognize that I think he's easily the best passer in the top five. And I guess the position he plays that I addressed is also a misconception. I think people just say, "Oh, he's a four. He's always going to be a four." I actually think that there's going to be situations where you're going to be able to play him at the three. I think there's going to be situations and matchups where you're going to be able to play him as a small ball five in stretches. Is that reliable? Are you going to start him at those positions? Probably not. But having that versatility is something that's important, and it allows you to scheme against different teams. The last one I'll touch on is his shooting. People say Paulo's not a good shooter, and well, yes, he's not a good shooter, but he's not an awful shooter either. And the point I usually make is his form looks good, right? He doesn't have any hitches. He's not out of balance. He's not fading away. He's not doing any of that. And then when you go and you look at the stats, he's been, and I'll to put it mildly, he's been terrible pulling up, right? But when you look at his catch and shoot stats, he's terrific from the corners. If you count both corners, he's shooting 50% from three in those. If you look at that area at the top of the 3-point line, where usually the trailer bigs at, he's shooting, I think, 40% on those, right? And he's shooting overall in catch and shoot threes at a 38% clip. So is he a good shooter? No. He has to improve on that. If we want him to play more of a wingy role on the perimeter, he's going to need to improve his shooting to leverage that into being able to drive past guys. But it's a work in progress, but it's not nearly as much of a work in progress as I think most people make it out to be. It's not a, I don't know, it's not a Jeremy Sohan or a Dyson Daniels type of situation where you're expecting him to build a shot from the ground up. No, the shot's already there. He's already a good mid-range shooter. It's just a matter of extending that range and him like being a little bit more balanced when he shoots. So because you can usually tell just out of his hands if a shot's going in or not.
I mean, yeah, I feel like the catch and shoot numbers are also just a bit over exaggerated, especially when it comes to the Rockets, because we already have the best catch and shoot shooter in the league, those KPJ. So it's not really as big of a problem as some maybe scouts or people would make it out to be, in my opinion. But yeah, following up on what you said about the positions that he can play, do you really think Paulo at the three for the Houston Rockets could be like the answer long term, other than just like the next few seasons?
I think it's a little bit of projection, right? I think he was a three his entire career. He played the four at Duke. The question is how much of his athleticism and his lateral quickness can he get back by reducing from his 250 pounds at Duke back to what he was coming out of high school, already at the same size, which was 235 pounds. Depending on how much mobility he gets left, I think there's going to be instances where you can play him at the three. If he can do it all the time long term, so it's a big question mark. It will also depend on his shot. It will also depend on how much he's hustling because he's going to have to be fighting through screens against three guard lineups. We've seen the Thunder do it when we had Harden last playoff run we were on. The Mavericks do it with Dinwiddie, Brunson, and Luka. So it will come down to how well he navigates screens. It will come down to I think Anish will be fine defending in space. I think it will also come down to well, how big of a mismatch are you? Because it's not just about how like it's not just about you being a problem on defense. If there's a problem on defense, but on offense, you're punishing the mismatch so easily that it doesn't matter, it will come down to that balance. I think taking the Maverick example, if he's being guarded by Dinwiddie or Jalen Brunson in a 3-guard lineup, how well can he punish that, right? How efficient will he be at punishing those mismatches, and will it be enough for on the defensive end? He gets blown by a couple of times, or he's playing too far back and the guards shoot over him. How punishing will that be? I think one of the things about Banchero is he'll be a walking mismatch at pretty much every position, probably less so at the 4. So how good will he be at punishing that? And then that for the 3, right? I think at the 5, I think pretty much no matter what, all he needs to do is he needs to get a little bit better at defending the pick and roll. He was pretty bad at it at Duke, but that's more of an IQ thing. He's a smart player. I think he can get there. He has the size. We've played centers that are smaller than him all the time. So I think in stretches to close out games like we used to do back in the Harlem days as well, there will be scenarios where he will be able to run the 5. And I think that's pretty much a guarantee. And he's going to be such a mismatch at the 5 in those small stretches of games that it will definitely be possible. And I think it will actually be one of his strengths.
Expanding upon like him being the 5, what do you think about his potential fit with Şengün? Because on paper, it doesn't seem like it would work.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough. I think it shouldn't really matter when it comes to who you draft. I think you should just draft whoever you think the best player is. In my opinion, I think it's Paulo, but you should draft the best player, and then you will probably you're not gonna be good next season. And so you can give that season, make sure you play them together enough so you know if there's something worth building upon there. But from the get-go, I don't think it's going to be a good fit. But I do think that both players are really young and can get better at their switchability, can get better at their IQ, can get better at protecting the rim to an extent that maybe they can do it. I think it's unlikely, but I don't think it should deter you from selecting him and trying it out. And you have this 1-year gap where you still have your pick, and you don't really mind if you're bad or not, right? If you're bad, oh no, we'll be in for a chance of Victor Wembanyama. The fit will likely not be great, but it's something that's worth exploring and seeing if it can work long term or not.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna drop a hot take that I've been thinking about. So just gonna have the expert here. Do you think I'd be crazy if I say that Banchero could pretty much be like a similar Jayson Tatum to the Rockets?
I think Tatum had some of the concerns coming in that Paulo has, and he worked on them and he fixed them. We will come down to, well, will Paulo be able to work on his and fix them? I think Tatum will always be a little bit more agile. I think Tatum is, as he's smaller, leaner, he'll probably be more of a perimeter player than Paulo is. But I also think that a lot of their go-to moves are similar. And I think Paulo coming out of the gate is by far a better playmaker than what Tatum is. And we know that it took Tatum to get to the point where he is now, where he got, I think, 12 assists in one of the finals games. And he still isn't like a go-to playmaker. I like to separate playmaking into 3 categories: is can you make the pass, can you read the defense, and can you collapse the defense enough to open up the passing lanes, right? I think Paul has all of those 3 written down. I think Paul has all of those 3 down. I think Tatum doesn't. I think Tatum tries to get his own, kind of like what KPJ does, obviously to a different extent, and then he reacts to what the defense is doing, and he makes the pass sometimes he doesn't. I think Paulo is more of a, I know how the defense will react if I do this, so he's already ready to make the pass immediately when the defense collapses. And he's better at actually placing the pass. It's different to pass the ball to a guy's feet versus passing the ball straight to the shooting pocket from them to be ready to shoot. The stats back that up. So I think they will be slightly different players. I think Tatum will be more of a perimeter player than what Paulo will be. That being said, I think they will play sort of similar roles to their teams if put in the same situation. The only difference is Tatum was forced to develop this playmaking side, Paulo will be forced to develop more of a perimeter game, but ultimately they'll play similar roles.
So you said some of their go-to moves are similar. I'm not really familiar with how Jayson Tatum came in as a prospect, but I know what he does now is a lot of that sidestep on the like at the 3-point line, sidestep in the mid-range. Is that something that he came in with?
I think that's something that he developed as time went on. I think what I'm referring to when I say they have sort of similar go-to moves, I think Tatum does it less now, but he has that I'm driving coming at you. And if you just try to hold your ground, I'm going to spin on you and I'm going to extend and finish at the rim, right? I think Paulo does that. I did that a lot at the college level. I think Tatum has that post game that Paulo has where he's going to bring you to the block and then he's going to fade away into a jump shot. Be that rotating over each shoulder or be that just stepping back. I think Paulo's will be more of the fadeaway, like your typical fadeaway rotating, and Tatum's more of the step back kind. I think those are similar as well. And then the step backs, I think, is a tough thing to learn. Paulo showed us some step backs from the 3-point line. I think he has 3 or 4 shots from there. I think he made, I think, 2 of them. So there's some potential there. I'm not sure that's something I'm relying upon for him to develop, but that's part of the mystique with Paulo is, well, he has so many different counters that what will he develop in the NBA that will become his go-to moves. But I think at the fundamental level, as I said, the fadeaway, the mid-range shots, the speed moves, the face-up game that Tatum has, Paulo has as well. And I think that's going to be, at least early on, just like it was with Tatum, the bread and butter. As also, as I said, it's going to defer a lot onto how will Paulo develop from the 3-point line and how much of his three will be a threat. Because if his three becomes close to as much of a threat as Tatum's is, just from a pull-up perspective, he's going to be a lot better at punishing the defense playing so far up on him because he's a lot stronger. And I think Tatum's is a bit quicker, but I think Paulo is quick from a standstill into driving. And yeah, I think he's going to draw more fouls.
Yeah, I got one more question, and it's a pretty fun one. So my question is with Jalen Green and Paulo Banchero, that could be like the next big duo in the NBA. Do you think there's like an NBA comparison, past or present, that would be similar to the duo of Jalen Green and Paulo Banchero?
Interesting. I've actually never thought about that. I guess I'll expand a little bit on how I think those two could work together, and then maybe something pops up to me. I think Banchero, as a good of a passer that he is, he'll fit really well with Jalen. Something that Salas did correctly this season was he kind of hard drilled into Jalen's head that you're going to be a bit of an off-ball player, and I think Jalen has developed immensely on that end. And it's not just your typical off-ball, just catch and shooting and being able to attack closeouts and stuff like that. No, I mean, actually, when Jalen is driving, we can a lot of times see he's driving. He sees that the lane's closed. He passes the ball to whoever, like usually it's Jayson that's clogging the lane, and he will immediately relocate to the 3-point line. And a lot of times with his quickness, the defense will just be too lazy to follow him around because it's really annoying to be chasing this guy around as quick as and shifty as he is. And I think we've seen a lot of instances Jalen this past season that he's doing these things, but the team's not really finding him. And I think if there's something that Paulo did really well at Duke was finding his guys when they were open. And I think Jalen will benefit a lot from finally having a high IQ, half court, more of a perimeter oriented playmaker. I know we have Şengün and Şengün's awesome. We've not seen much of Şengün and Jalen, but I think it's different to have a post playmaker versus someone like Paul, who, as I said, will collapse the defense and then find whoever's open. I think that Paul will make Jalen Green a lot better. And then it's one of those dynamics where it's not really a number, like, this doesn't mean that Paul has the ball in his hands all the time. This doesn't mean that Jalen has out the ball in his hands all the time. Jalen's so versatile that you can have him pair up with any superstar that has playmaking potential, like Paul does, and it will work out really well in terms of usage. The other thing is, I think Paul was underrated as a role man. If you're thinking about a Jalen Green, Paolo Banchero pick and roll, you have this insanely quick guard that's going to be able to punish you and shoot from three if you don't play up on him. And then as the roll man, you have this guy with a big frame, right? If he stays at it, 250 pounds, like 6'10" dude, that's going to be setting the screen. And then the guy rolling is big, as I just said, that's Paulo, but he's also a really smart passer, so he'll be able to react accordingly to what the defense is giving him. And so it's going to be one of those combos where you're kind of picking your poison. Paul is also so versatile that he'll be able to just stop and pop. If you're playing too far back at the rim, he'll be able to stop and pop from the mid range. If you're playing up to him, he'll be able to bully you and get to the rim himself, or just blow by you and get to the rim himself. If you're sending too much help, Paul is going to be able to make the pass, either the pocket pass to whatever big man you have in the dunker spot, or the pass to the 3-point line, whoever was left open. And I think that's going to be really hard to guard in time. I think both players need to improve a little bit on their IQ on how to navigate that situation, but he has the potential to be one of the deadliest pick and roll duos in the league. When it comes to a comparison, it's tough. I'm trying to think of some of these like wing or power forward and shooting guard duos. And I think these two guys are so unique. It's hard enough to find a comparison for Paulo in the NBA, let alone a comparison duo. So yeah, I would struggle to. I've been trying to come up with one, but I'm struggling to find like a real comparison. I don't know if you guys have any.
I mean, would it be crazy to say at their absolute peak, it could be like an MJ and Scottie Pippen 2.0?
I think it's different. It's a different NBA. I think, of course, Jalen's going to be a better 3-point shooter than what MJ is. I'm not sure how good of an off-ball mover MJ was compared to what Jalen is. I'm not sure how Paul will do on defense. I can definitely see the comparison when it comes to the Scottie Pippen role for Paulo. The MJ role for Jalen is the one that I struggle with a little bit more.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's hard to make a comparison for these two. They're pretty unique as players. So I had one last question for you. You mentioned how Jalen Green and Paolo can run this pick and roll. I was wondering, what do you think about Paolo's short roll capabilities, like how he passes out of it or like decides to score from the short roll?
Yep, I think we've seen, for example, one of the things that we've heard a lot is, well, KJ Martin is really like he has capabilities out of the short roll that really go unused. I think Paulo will be able to do that on steroids. I think, as I said, the ability to read the defense, the ability to make the pass and make the pass in an efficient and timely enough manner to make the shot wide open versus a slightly contested shot, or make the closeout be too hard and force and make the 3-point shooter be able to close out and have a lot of space. The fact that Paulo, as I said, can stop short of the rim and just pop for a mid-range shot. The fact that Paulo's really strong and he'll be able to finish through contact at the rim if you play too far up on him. I think a lot of the versatility that we see with Paulo will make him a really deadly roll man, considering his size and his mobility. That it's really hard to think of a comparison in the NBA right now, and I think that's really exciting, especially when you're combining him with a player like Jalen, who has so many physical gifts, and he's so quick, and he can balance that quickness with shooting at all three levels. So I think offensively, that pairing will be really exciting. The defensive side of the ball will be the work in progress.
Yeah, so finally, I just wanted to ask you one last thing. How likely do you think it is for us to actually land Paolo at 3? Because, I don't know, to me, it feels like there's a lot of smoke at Jabari going to Orlando at 1. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, personally, I have Paulo 1. I have Chet like 1B really close to Paulo, and I have Jabari 2 like clearly, or 3 clearly 3. I think usually when it's smoke, it's coming from the teams, right? They're trying to make it hard for you to guess what's going to happen. Yes, I think when it reaches a point, which is where we're at now, where Chet's like interacting on social media with strictly OKC Thunder players, and Jabari is going back and forwards with Orlando players on social media, right? I think at that point, when the players themselves think it's gonna happen, like you're not really, like, no team's asking their players to go ahead. Oh, can you go set the smoke screen for me and go interact with this prospect or whatever. So I think it's pretty safely going to be Jabari at 1, and I think it's going to be Chet at 2. I think the Thunder are a really tough team to predict. I think there's a chance that they go ahead and they take Jaden Ivey for some reason. And in that sense, we may get a choice. And if we get a choice, I'm not really sure what the Rockets are going to do. But I am pretty much 100% confident that if only one of the bigs fall, that's who we're going to take. I don't think there's any chance that we're going to take Jaden Ivey.
That makes sense. Thank you so much for your time, Paolo. Is there anything that you would like to plug or like how people can find you on social media here?
Yeah, y'all can find me on Twitter at PaulAlves NBA. That's PauloAlves NBA. Everything I do from podcasts to the live shows on Twitter Spaces, you'll find stuff linked on there. Also follow Quad City CR on Twitter. If you go into the bio, there's a link tree there. You can find our podcasts on YouTube and all the other platforms. So yeah, it's been an honor to be here. Thank you guys for having me.